What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Frankie D'Astoli Show. I am your host, Frankie D'Astoli, as always. Excited to have you guys here. It has been an interesting week, to say the least. I think I must have had so many people, guys, that's been blowing up my phone after I came out with the episode by Tenant got kidnapped. If you haven't listened to that episode, I definitely recommend going back and listen to that. I had so many people reach out to me being like, what are the details on this? We need to see, we need to know. And I do have an update. And as I was replaying this in my head, I was thinking to myself, I was like, "What it like, I didn't really understand the actual laughable aspect of that whole situation." Like, when that happened to me, I had so many other things going on that I was kinda just like, "All right, another excuse, like, whatever." And then I actually dissected it, and when people started, like, reaching out to me about it, I was like, "Wait a minute, like, that is absolutely absurd." That is absolutely absurd. I mean, what did this tenant expect me to say to this? Did she expect me to pretty much become like Liam Neeson from Taken and be like, "I will find you, I will rescue you"? Like, I was just like totally floored after I was thinking about it. And truth be told, when she had texted that over, the craziest, even maybe even the more craziest part of that scenario is we got that notification about, the smell of weed, coming from their house from my neighboring tenant. And this is something that's actually maybe even funnier and more ironic than the kidnapping excuse from my other tenant. Is the tenant that reported this to me, she's on parole, right? And I know probably everybody's probably like, what the heck kind of operation are you running here, Frankie? Well, she's on parole for something very, very minor. And, we did a whole background check, credit check, income check, all of that stuff. And aside from the fact that she's on a little bit of a parole stint, she's a fantastic tenant. And she was just like, I'm very concerned that my parole officer is going to come to the house and is going to smell weed and I'm going to get in trouble. And when I was playing this whole situation back, I'm like, what a wild situation is. I got one tenant who's complaining about another tenant for the smell of weed, and the reason why she's complaining is she's worried about a parole officer coming to the house and finding out about it. Just an absolute disaster. So, long story short, this tenant ends up saying that she gets kidnapped. And truth be told, guys, I've had enough of it. I mean, I didn't even register it. Her reply back to me was, okay, as soon as I get home. They were out over the weekend talking about her sons because her sons are over 18. They're on the lease. If she can't pay for rent, I mean, yeah, at some point, these kids need to take responsibility as well and maybe step in and help out a little bit here. So she says that, her sons are away. And then she said, I got kidnapped this morning. So as soon as I get home, again, what are we talking about here? Like, you got kidnapped as soon as you get home. Where are you? What is happening? I simply just replied, thank you. That was it. I wanted no part of this. I was also dealing with so many other things, and I was just like, I got no time for this lady right now. And long and behold, I text her the next day and I just say, good morning. The cutoff to correct those three items, the trash, the weed, the rent, is today at 3 p.m. If you don't get it done, I'll be going to the courthouse. And of course, she sends over some nonsense excuse that she's trying to clean up and she's trying to get in touch with the city to come pick up the bulk items. I still haven't received a dime. I don't know if it smells like weed. I'm gonna have to stop by this week. I actually didn't even get a chance to go to the courthouse. I've been so busy this past week. I had my boy Justin Eaton on the show. Make Laundry Great Again. That episode dropped. If you guys didn't hear that episode, I definitely recommend going back and listening to that. That honestly is a game-changing episode. It's a game-changing episode. He is doing some unbelievable things. But long story short, I had a very, very long, tumultuous week. There was a lot going on. I didn't have the time to go to the courthouse. So now I've given not just 24 hours. At this point of the recording, it's been 48 hours. And by the time, I'm recording this on Friday, it's going to come out on the following Monday. It's going to be an entire weekend. And I'm probably not receiving a dime from her. And I've accepted that. And that's what it is. And ultimately, like I said before, I wasn't even trying to kick this lady out. Like, I really don't want to. Like, in all honesty, I want to avoid eviction at any possible case for two reasons. A, it's costly, it's annoying, it's risky for me, and it's risky in the sense of if a tenant knows they're getting evicted, there's zero chance that I'm getting the money unless they're forced to actually pay it and they want to stay. But there's a good chance that they trash the place even more, leading to me having to, front more money out of our operation to renovate the house. And it's also, risky in the sense of, I shouldn't say risky in the sense, it's also just, it's not great for the tenant, right? Like, we kick them out, the sheriff comes, they lock them out. They probably are going to cause a massive scene. They might vandalize the house, as I mentioned, and then it makes it harder for them to find a house. And I'm not in the business of like ruining, someone's renter life ship, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's like, yo, we provide housing. pay the rent. Like, that's all I'm asking, right? That's really it. And take care of the house. Treat it as your home, right? Which is like what you were saying you wanted to do in the first place. But lo and behold, I try to avoid it in every possible scenario. The reason why I absolutely have no choice now is because it's affecting the other tenant next door. That's it. At that point now, I don't want two disgruntled tenants. I don't want any of that, right? So we got to get one out. And the one that's going out is the one that ain't paying, and the one that's making excuses and saying she got kidnapped and just, pretty much just throwing in the towel at this point. So yeah, that's it. Hopefully the parole officer doesn't come down the block, and hopefully I, don't have to face this woman in court again, but I don't even care. I don't even care at this point, right? And I've talked about this before. I try to walk the line. I really, really do. Everybody knows I'm a Catholic man. I have love of neighbor on the top of mind, always. At the same time, I run a business, right? Me and my partner, Steve, we are not in this to lose money. So at the same time, we run a business. We provide good quality housing. Our expectation is we will have tenants that take care of the home and will pay. That is it, right? At the end of the day, it's clear cut. We've given opportunity after opportunity. We've taken her to court. She paid. We fixed the things in the house. We continue to fix the things in the house. We tried to put payment plans together. At the end of the day, one thing's got to give. And at this point, we just got to give and we got to evict. And that's pretty much where it stands. So that is it. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it goes smoothly. And thankfully, my experience with the courts has been relatively smooth. Usually when I go to file for an eviction, I get a court date about 2 weeks later, which is fantastic. So we'll see how it's going in regards to that. But it's been a busy week. Like I was saying, I had my boy Justin on, which was awesome. We closed on a duplex, which I know I talked about a couple episodes ago. We closed on a duplex. It's a 1 bedroom on the top floor, a 2 bedroom on the bottom floor. And we actually closed on it. We don't even have it renovated yet. Obviously, we literally just closed on it like 3 days ago. And we have a few showings actually at it tomorrow. We have a couple people with some Section 8 vouchers that are looking for 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms. And it actually just worked out great. They looked at some other stuff that we had, but at that point it was all like 3-bedroom stuff. They couldn't get the vouchers up, all of that. So we do have some potential tenants that will go in there. If that's the case, the cool thing about this duplex is the cosmetic stuff is actually already for the most part done. The top floor does still need a kitchen, so we're gonna have to get that going. But a lot of it is kind of just like touch up paint, clean the floors, a deep clean in there, do some touch ups in the bathroom. It's really the systems that a bulk of our renovation money is going to. We need 2 new heaters in there. We need some new electric updates. We need hot water tanks. We need a new gas meter. It's a lot of that stuff. And in this area, that's like common. You have people that break in and just take pipes, cut wires. Like, this is the world that I'm living in out here, right? And you understand it, you accept it, and you do everything you can against it. But that's how it goes. When we bought this duplex, that's what happened prior to this previous owner, because they weren't keeping an eye on it and taking care of it. So the bulk of the renovation stuff is going into the system. So when we get these tenants in there, we're letting them know, like, hey, this is not what it's going to look like when it's renovated, and they're aware of that. And thankfully, like, they've seen some of our other units, so they know the type of quality work that we put in. And hopefully we can get this thing locked up. We can start generating some income on it ahead of time, get in there, do the renovations that we need, get it rented out, and then shortly after, 3 months later, we'll hit the refinance button on it. But it's awesome. I'm very, very happy about that. That is Steve and I's 17th and 18th door and 16th property, which is pretty awesome. I mean, him and I bought our first deal together on April 12th of 2024, and we closed that one on, what was it, January 21st or something like that of 2025. So in the course of about 8-9 months, we've picked up 16 houses, 18 doors, which is awesome. And that was actually my 18th property that I closed personally. I think it's my 20th door. I think 21st door, something like that. I had 2 duplexes in there, so something like that. 20th, 21st door. I don't know. I gotta count them up. But it's been all fun and games. I love it. We're enjoying it, and we're very excited about that duplex. I got one other tenant. This will be the last kind of tenant story that I have. I got this one other tenant who's phenomenal. Honestly, I inherited her, and the plan was, she's in a 3-bedroom house right now. The plan was to pivot her into a 2-bedroom house that we have in this other duplex that we just finished renovating the top unit. But we ended up bringing her over to it a couple months ago, and she was just like, it's too small. I don't like the block. She had a lot of complaints about it, and we're unfortunately losing her. She is like partnering up with like I don't want to call him like a side piece. I don't know exactly who he is. She says she's not, they're not in a relationship. It's not her boyfriend. It's a friend of hers, whatever the case might be, but they're buddying up and they're moving out somewhere. And she was supposed to be out beginning of January. And here we are on January 24th at the time of this recording, and she's not out, obviously, right? So we, after a long talk with her and kind of like figuring things out, she's going to be out supposedly at the end of January. But this is something to keep in mind, because if she's not out by the end of January, I really have no choice but I have to file an eviction on her, because we need to get in there and renovate this unit. It's been months that we've let her stay there, and she has paid rent while she was staying, but we just weren't even in a position to touch that renovation at that time. We were just working on a bunch of other jobs, but hopefully she's out. If not, I might have to file an eviction. But she did say to me that she doesn't really want to stay with, again, this man's, whatever their relationship is, for long term. She's just kind of temporarily moving in there. And if we have a 1-bedroom that ends up coming available, she'll take it. Well, this duplex that we bought does have a 1-bedroom. And truthfully, like I said, I do like her as a tenant. She's paid on time every single month. She's good quality. She's a good person. She keeps to herself. So there is a chance that we might end up pivoting her into this new duplex that we acquired also, if it works out. If not, well, we'll renovate it. We'll get that place rented out too. But yeah, it's been a very, very fun week. It also started this past Monday, started Exodus 90, which I've talked about a handful of times on this show as well. And Exodus 90 is a 90-day spiritual, retreat, maybe is a word that you could use, spiritual journey, spiritual marathon, in a sense, it feels like as well. And the purpose of it is to find uncommon freedom, right? And the ways that you do that is you let go of all of the very basic freedoms that we experience and enjoy on a day-to-day basis that we don't even realize, right? Such as watching TV, such as sweeteners in coffee or sweet drinks in general, such as alcohol. What else is on that list? I feel like there's so much. I'll pull up the disciplines right now. I'm gonna pull them up right now. So the disciplines for Exodus 90, this is stuff that you do pretty much all day long, is you read a excerpt from the book of Exodus and you reflect on it. There's an audio version through the app. You make a holy hour each day. So we pray for at least 1 hour a day. You make a morning offering, right? It's quick. My morning offering is a quick prayer. It's probably about like 7 sentences, just offering my morning. You make a nightly examine. Nightly examines are so low key, guys. It's a 3-minute, 2 to 3 minute reflection at the end of the day. Where did I go right? Where did I go wrong? How can I be better? Get a full night's sleep, 8 hours. I never hit that discipline. If I get 7, it's solid for me. Usually I'm hovering around 6. Cold showers. Yes, how could I forget the cold showers, of course. Avoid unnecessary smartphone use. Last year I actually got rid of social media for 90 days and it was unbelievably great. Like, I felt so refreshed after that. Now, because of the Frankie D'Astoli Show, because of my, real estate stuff that I got going on, I'm just on social media. It's part of my business, it's part of my vocation at this point. But I did delete Facebook for the time being, and I'm doing everything I can to get away from my personal page, my personal Instagram page as well. Avoid unnecessary computer use, give up video games, give up TV, give up alcohol, no soda or sweet drinks, no snacking between meals. That's actually a little bit of a difficult one for me. No desserts or sweets. I'm a sucker for ice cream. I love ice cream. And it's hard. It's hard right now because Christina, being pregnant, actually has something called an MTB card. There's a spot on Haddon Ave by me called Primo's where they actually have a mother-to-be discount card where Christina gets 10 free ice creams. And we only got to utilize about 5 of those. So we got 5 of these free ice creams that I can't even enjoy. And that's been challenging for me. I love my ice cream. Listen only to music that lifts the soul up to God. No unnecessary purchases, which is sometimes challenging as well. Check in with your anchor. So there's a whole fraternity piece of this. I have a buddy right now. His name's Dan. We check in. We call each other once or twice a week. We text each other every single day. We just talk about it, everything going on in each other's lives. We pray for each other. You got to fast on Wednesdays and Fridays, and you can't eat meat on Wednesdays and Fridays, which as a Catholic, we shouldn't eat meat on Fridays in general, right? And we should fast on Fridays as well as a remembrance of Jesus Christ going through the passion, dying on the cross for us sinners. Literally, we are the reason he was on the cross on Fridays, and we should use that as a remembrance. You got to exercise at least 3 times per week, which I do my 4:45 a.m. workouts nowadays, which is fire. And then I added a few. Oh, and celebrate the Lord's Day. Of course, on Sunday, you get to break one discipline every single Sunday. I break TV. I like to watch TV with my family, especially now. You got football on. I'll watch football. I'll watch, the conference championship and then the Super Bowl. But I like to watch TV. And last Exodus, my wife and I watched Band of Brothers. Phenomenal show. We're going to run that back. I'm going to run that back this year. And I think it's a great show, especially during Exodus, because you go through some challenging times, you face some adversities. And then within Exodus as well, I've also added 4 of my own personal disciplines that I focus on every single day. I say a specific prayer for my family every single day, which I get out of my Catholic Household Blessings book. It's literally called Catholic Household Blessings and Prayers. I'm reading it off my bookshelf right now. That's what the book is called. I get a bunch of my prayers from that book and one specific for my family. I pray at least 1 rosary every single day. I try to pray 3. On Wednesdays and Thursdays. I actually try to pray 4 because on the Wednesday, I like to pray a rosary for Saint Joseph. I reflect on some of the mysteries of Saint Joseph, who he was as a man, how he was the head of the Holy Family for Mary and Jesus. So I like to get that in on Wednesdays. And on Thursdays, I pray the Luminous Mysteries, which is the designated day for the Luminous Mysteries. But Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I try to pray my basic 3, which is the joyful mysteries, the sorrowful mysteries, and the glorious mysteries. I have 10 pages of reading a day minimum, and then 30 minutes of undivided playtime or quality time with Bernadette. That's something that I do. And usually I get that, but that's like phone away, none of that stuff. I'm actively playing with her. I'm having a good time with her, and I'm really qualifying, or I'm really getting some, quality time with her and bonding on a father and daughter relationship. So Exodus 90, we're on day 5 at the time of this recording. It's going great. I actually was able to pull my brother-in-law and my cousin in too, and they're loving it also. And the point of Exodus 90 is to face these challenges, right? And like I said, you break away from these freedoms of the day. Think about how often we just get sucked into the couch, watching TV, snacking, right? Or how easy it is to, come home from a day's work and crack open a beer, or, just listening to music just all day long, having your headphones in. It's literally programming into your brain, and like I said, I love Kid Laroi. Kid Laroi's the man. I think he's a great young artist. I think he's on the cleaner side, although not all of his songs are. But there's so many times where I'm like, should I put on Bible in a year? Or do I want to listen to Kid Laroi? And that's a perfect example of me choosing the materialistic world over, the spiritual plus of what I should be doing with my relationship with God. So again, Exodus 90 breaks you away from that. And it's not meant to be easy. And it's also not meant to just be about the disciplines. It's meant to bring you to God, to put you in communion with God. And at the end of the 90 days, what I should be able to say is, it's not that I didn't watch TV for 90 days and I did cold showers for 90 days and I drank black coffee and water for 90 days. It should be, I have a better relationship with God and I've brought myself and my family closer to heaven. That's the goal. That's the end goal, right? So X has been great. I'm actually, excited. I'm going to talk a little bit about Moses in Exodus. So every day, like I said, we pray and we reflect on the book of Exodus. And this kind of had me thinking because, Moses is obviously a very, very big biblical character in who he was, right? So Moses's background is he came out of Egypt, right? So he was a Hebrew, he was born a Hebrew. And at this time when he was born, Pharaoh was ordering the death of all newborn sons, right? There were midwives that would go to the Israel people, to the Israelites, to the Hebrews, and they would, or at this point, I believe they were just Hebrews possibly. Oh, no, they're Israelites as well. But they would go there and they would tend to the wives of the Hebrews. And if a son was born, they were to kill it, right? That was what was ordered from Pharaoh. And in this case, as this is all going on, Moses is put in a basket and sent down a river for salvation, right? To like not have the fact that he's going to be killed, he's going to be slaughtered. And he ends up in the house of Pharaoh, right? As he comes through this river, and it's Pharaoh's daughter that ends up grabbing the basket, finding the child and naming him Moses because he had come from the river to her. And she brings him in and eventually, to my understanding, adopts him and, ends up having Moses as her son. Then some time passes. Moses gets older and there's an incident that happens where he sees a Hebrew being, brutally attacked by one of these Egyptian, guards or whatever the case is. And he ends up killing the guard, and the Hebrews end up finding out about this. And lo and behold, it ends up spreading like wildfire. And Pharaoh ends up finding out that Moses killed somebody. He orders Moses to die. Moses ends up fleeing into the desert, right? And in the desert, he ends up coming into Midian. I just want to make sure I'm correcting on everything here so I deliver it the best way possible. He ends up coming into Midian and he ends up marrying this woman, Zipporah. And I'm going to just kind of skip ahead a little bit. And this ultimately leads to the burning bush. So Moses is in the desert for a while at this point, and he now is a changed man, right? So he lived the Egyptian lifestyle, right? He was in royalty. He was part of Pharaoh's family. And with that, he lived this very pagan lifestyle, right? Where exactly like what we talk about with Exodus, right? This is the whole basis of it, right? He had all these freedoms around him. He was surrounded by all this sin, worshiping different gods, idolatry, all these absolutely negative things. He goes into the desert. And if you have any recollection with Old Testament, New Testament, any of that stuff, there's always this kind of renewal period that happens in the desert, right? There's transformation that happens in the desert. And that's exactly what happens to Moses. He ends up transforming. Now he's with the Hebrew people, right? He's in Midian. And he comes across this burning bush. And for anybody that hasn't seen the movie Prince of Egypt, I highly recommend you watch this movie. It's an animated movie. It's probably more of a kid's movie, if anything, I would say. But there's such value in it. And the way that I think of this burning bush scene, I think of that movie, it's actually so powerful and moving. But from the burning bush, God calls out to Moses. And he says, I am calling you. I've heard the groans and the pain and the suffering I've seen my people in Egypt go through, and I am calling you to draw them out from Pharaoh's control, to bring them into the desert where I will bring them to the promised land flowing with milk and honey. I'm calling out to you, Moses. And when Moses first hears this, first off, he's, totally captivated and he's in this full trance of how everything's going on as he's talking, he's communicating with God. But you even see that in scripture, he's hesitant about it. He's like, who am I? And God responds back with, power and authority and says, I am sending you. Right. And when Moses says, like, who should I, like say that you are, he says, like, I am, right? That's like the big thing. I'll even see if I can find the scripture. I have the book of Exodus in front of me here. All right, so this is Exodus chapter 3, verse 11. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? God answered, I will be with you, and this will be your sign that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will serve God at this mountain. But Moses said to God, if I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What do I tell them? God replied to Moses, I am who I am. Then he added this is what you will tell the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. So when I hear this, a few things go into my head, right? Number one is when I'm reflecting on what God is doing here. So God has heard the moaning and the groaning and the discomfort, and he's seen the suffering of the Israelite people. And he tells Moses that he is going to bring the people to a land full of milk and honey, right? The promised land. And that's a little bit further. That's Exodus. It's still chapter 3. That gets into like verses like 16 to 18 range. He talks about how he's going to bring the people out of Egypt, how he's going to strike Egypt, and how he's going to bring his people through the desert to the land of milk and honey. But really, what he's saying here is, I am has sent you, right? I am. God is. He is. He has forever always been, right? Here's the thing. God never changes. From the time he became to what it is now, he has never changed. There is no changing with him. His mercy is the same. His love is the same. His grace is the same. Everything is the same. He's forever the same. He doesn't change. And what he's saying here is, I am what you are coming to. I am drawing you out to be with me. And that's what I think, I pull from, and this was kind of my reflection, was even though God is saying, again, as it says a little bit further in Exodus, that he's going to bring his people to a land of milk and honey, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about him drawing his people to him, to God, the I am eternal, right? And I think about this, and even when you talk about pray the rosary, buy real estate, right? Again, I say this all the time, spiritual poverty, generational wealth. The spiritual poverty piece is the first part. The generational wealth is great, right? Having houses, having property, providing for your family long term, right? For your kids and your grandkids, having the freedom to live life on your terms. That's all great. And we see it in Exodus here. God is going to pull his people out of Egypt. He's going to bring them to the land of milk and honey. But that's not the point of the journey. The journey is to bring them to him. And that's why he's going to pull his people out of Egypt. And he chooses Moses here. And we might be saying, why Moses? Why are we choosing Moses in a situation like this? Moses was a pagan. Moses lived in Pharaoh's royalty, in the house of Pharaoh, doing who knows what with who knows who, just absolutely doing things that he shouldn't be doing, right? To the point where he murdered somebody, killed an Egyptian. And even before that, think about, he's lived this life of royalty. Think about all the things that he was subject to, right? All the idolatry, all the, I'm sure, women running around Pharaoh's castle doing a bunch of random, disgusting things. Anything that this guy wanted, he had at his disposal. Yet God picks him. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that God picks him. And it's because Moses knows. Moses knows through that situation, through that whole paganism, through all of that stuff. He went into the desert afterwards. He was transformed. He now knows where this is in the back end. He is the perfect leader for a situation like this. And you see it. And I know the book of Exodus. I know where it leads to. It leads to the desert wanderings, right? And in the desert, shortly after the people, this is a spoiler alert, shortly after the people come out of Egypt, what do? They create the golden calf, right? Which Aaron was one of the people that was responsible for initiating all of this and getting that done. But they created this golden calf. And these people of Israel that were in Egypt they don't revolt, excuse me, they revert to paganism. And Moses, at this point in his life, is wise enough. He's got wisdom now. He's wise enough to understand the repercussions of the pagans, right? Of what happens when you do those types of things. And he knows, I'm going to pull these people out of Egypt by the grace of God. They are going to have these pagan and these, just negative things that are attached to them because they lived in Egypt. Because for the past 400 years, they have been following, for the most part, Egyptian law and all of this other stuff that's been going on, right? So Moses is actually the perfect person for a situation like this. And it actually provides a great opportunity for reflection. I think a lot of people are probably in a similar boat to me in some cases, right? Like I went to University of Delaware. And you guys know, the first episode that I created on the Frankie D'Astoli Show is titled Frat Star to Father. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, right? I truly embodied the frat star lifestyle, right? I remember since I was a sophomore in high school, I visited my sister Alyssa at University of Delaware, and I went to a day drink and I went to a night party, and I said, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to University of Delaware because I was hooked. I was hooked on the frat star life of, drinking, partying, being around, just all of these more so, it was, I'm trying to find the best way to say it. It was just a frat star lifestyle, right? That was it. It was a rock star lifestyle. Think of rock stars, like that's what it was, right? And I was hooked on that. I liked that. I wanted to be involved in that. And I was, right? Long behold, I get into University of Delaware after I was denied and I pushed for an interview. I get into University of Delaware. I get into the fraternity that I wanted to get into, the fraternity that I partied with when I was a sophomore in high school. I got in that fraternity. I was the face of that fraternity for the most part. I was, social chair, exec board member, ran all of this, organized the date parties at B-Side Complex in Philadelphia, did all the crazy things, right? And I lived that life. And as I was doing that, it's ironic because I still had a relationship with God. And when I look back on it, I think of my relationship with Jesus a lot as Jesus is like my anchor and I'm the boat, right? And sometimes I'm tight. I'm right there. The anchor's right under me. I'm the boat. We're in tight connection. And sometimes the string is running, right? The rope is running and I'm far out at sea. But what I realize is the anchor is always still in the ground. And that was my relationship with Christ. And even when I was in college and I was doing not so good things, I was doing things I'm not proud of, things that I look back on and I'm just like, wow, like I thought I was cool. I thought that was like, I thought I had drip and swag and I was the man. And I look back on those things and I'm not proud of those things, right? However, Jesus always had his anchor with me, right? I mean, he always had me anchored down and he would pull me back to him. He would pull me back to him. And eventually after I graduate college, and that lifestyle kind of has a close, Shortly after that, I meet my wife, Christina, and my life changes significantly. And now I'm more of a devout, traditional Catholic. I see the value in starting a family, being the head of my domestic church at home, procreating and bringing children into this world and raising them in the faith, being the provider, protector, and leader of my family, being the priest of my family, doing all of these things. That's super, super important. And because of this, I have the capability to look at someone who might be in a fraternity right now whose only focus is going out, partying, doing things that, are not good things. And I could look at that person and I could talk to them about why that's not important. And Moses is that same person now. Moses is the person that could look to his Israelite brothers and sisters, his Hebrews in Egypt, and say, what you are doing is incorrect. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I spent time in the desert, because I was transformed, because I have a relationship with God. And this is why what you're doing right now is not the path. It's not the way. It's not the direction that you should be going. And I think a lot of us could actually look at this and respond in a very, very similar way. You might be in a situation where you're just like, I'm too far away. I've grown away from God. I've done some not so good things that I regret, things that I don't feel I'm a good person for, or whatever the case might be. And what I will say in those situations is, because you've done those things, there's something so, so beautiful about the Catholic Church. There's something called confession, where you could go, you can confess your sins to a priest who relays those to God. He's the mediator between God and you as the confessor. He prescribes penance. There's reconciliation. You are forgiven. You are abstained from those sins. You are created anew. You are a new man or a new woman in that sense. Those sins are forgiven. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful sacraments that the Catholic Church has. And second, you can now use that as a catapult to better yourself and to better the people around you. If you look back and you say, I did this, I'm not happy about it. By God's grace and mercy, I have been forgiven, and now I am better. I could speak on those situations. I understand why that wasn't right. And now I could help other people that are going through those same situations. I can help them be better. I could bring them closer to God. I could show them the way because I've come from it. And that's exactly how it looks like for my life. That's why, as much as there's so much that I regret necessarily, it's made me the person that I am. And same with Moses. I'm sure in this situation, when Moses is just saying to God, like, why me? Like, I'm not worthy of this. And God is redirecting him. Moses is realizing, I understand. Now I know. And I'm sure Moses being in the desert, right, all that time, growing in relationship with God, with the Hebrews around him, doing all this stuff, I'm sure he must have looked back on his time in Egypt and said, why would I do that? That was very, very stupid of me. I was ill influenced. I didn't do the right thing. And now he's seeing the over circling arc of what's happening in his life, where he was, where he's gone to, and where he is now. And now his purpose in life is coming to light. So I'm going to keep updating you guys on our buddy Moses as we travel through this time in Egypt and then the desert. And eventually it will lead to Joshua as well in Exodus, which is really, really exciting. But Pray the Rosary, buy real estate. Pray the Rosary, buy real estate. And if you're watching on the live stream, on the video, not the live stream, if you're watching on the video, I actually got a little mock Pray the Rosary, buy real estate quarter zip. And it came out great. I think the logo is drooping a little bit low. I definitely would like it a little bit higher on the chest, but a friend of mine has a Cricut. She was able to do it for me. And I just wanted to put something together real quick so I could start repping, because Pray the Rosary, buy real estate is a movement. That's what it is. It's a movement. We need to be praying the rosary, and we need to be buying real estate, because real estate is a fantastic asset class. It provides protection. It provides sustainability. It goes up in value historically. It provides cash flow, which gives you passive income. So there's so many values to real estate, but there's so many values to the rosary, significantly more. The rosary will grow you deeper to Jesus and our Blessed Mother Mary. It will help you walk in Jesus's footsteps. It'll help you feel the way that Mary felt as, she watched her son go from birth to death on the cross. And it's fantastic. And we should unite ourselves with some of the amazing saints that are known for the rosary, like St. Dominic, St. Louis de Montfort, St. Bernadette, St. Therese. all of these phenomenal saints that continue to push the rosary. So I love it. We need the movement. We need to get it going. In February, we will be having a Pray the Rosary Buy Real Estate event. We'll call it Rosary and Real Estate. The website is in process. At some point in February, I will be doing a free event for anybody that's looking to grow further in their faith and their financial freedom. If you are interested in that, feel free to DM me, Frankie D'Astoli _REI. I will answer any questions on that, but I will be posting about it once it comes and actually, has a concrete date and a place, and that will be someplace in New Jersey. So I'll get all those details out to you. But Pray the Rosary, buy real estate, and I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. I got a lot of exciting content coming out. I'm going to have some more interviews. If you didn't listen to my interview with my boy Justin Eaton, Make Laundry Great Again, go back and listen to that. And I will catch you guys on the flippity flip. Take it easy.